Good evening and welcome inside the TV studio at UVC TV 19. In the Student Union, this is UMass Sports Weekly, your number one source for everything UMass sports. I'm your host, Zander Manning, and I'll be taking you through this weekend's latest news. First, we'll be talking to Jay Ho about the UMass football team. The Minutemen flew down to the Magnolia State and took on the SEC foe, Mississippi State. How did the Minutemen do? Did they keep their hopes of making a bowl game alive? I don't know. We'll see. Then we'll be talking with Ryan Beaton in the hopes of getting some insight on the hockey team. How did the Minutemen fare versus Hockey East and regional rival UNH Saturday night? Then finally, we'll be talking with Justin McCagnon, a.k.a. J-Mac, about some men's soccer. How did they fare in the Atlantic 10 tournament play this weekend? Is their season still going? We'll find out. We've got what should be a riveting show on tap for you tonight. So grab something to drink, or chug if you're really that thirsty, or eat, or inhale if you're really that hungry. The only thing I really want to see you picking up tonight is some cutlery or some drinkware, not that remote. Don't change that channel. All this and more is coming up right now. This is UMass Sports Weekly. And we're back. Over the weekend, the Minutemen flew down to Starkville, Mississippi, or as the locals call it, Stark Vegas, to take on their toughest opponent all season. Mississippi State Bulldogs of the Southeastern Conference, or in layman's terms, the SEC. Before their last two victories, the Minutemen had to win out if they were to make a bowl game this season, and they were on the right track after defeating Georgia Southern and Appalachian State in consecutive games. They were a third of the way there. Unfortunately, though, the Bulldogs ruined that for the Minutemen, but not by much. Mississippi State ended up coming out on top on this one, 34-23. Probably one of the closest games the number 16 team in the country, Mississippi State, has played this season. With that, we bring in our resident football expert, Jay Ho. Jay Ho, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine.
Good to hear. So what are some positives to take away from this game? There's got to be something.
Well, yeah, there are a few positives to take away. The fact that they were a 20, I heard they were a 28 to ranging from 28 to 31 point underdog, and nobody gave them a chance to win. I would say, I don't usually believe in moral victories, but I would say this was a slight moral victory, even though they definitely have some rooms for improvement. And Mississippi State was ranked 21st in the country, and they were 6-2, and they were 4th in the SEC West, and they were behind Alabama, Auburn, and LSU. And also they were up 20-13 at halftime.
Really?
So that's a positive takeaway. And wide receiver Andy Isabella had a great day. He had 7 receptions, and he had 158 yards, and he caught a 70-yard touchdown. And Marquise Young had a solid game with 91 yards on 11 carries. And also one of the big positives was UMass won the turnover battle, as Mississippi State had 3 turnovers and UMass had 1. And all of Mississippi State's turnovers were off interceptions. And Massachusetts got 10 points off of the turnovers too. Mm-hmm. And they limited Mississippi State's passing game, as Nick Fitzgerald threw for only 139 yards. And he had 0 touchdowns, he had 2 interceptions, and a QBR of 32.5. And Mississippi State went 4 of 11 on third down.
Jeez, it's like they shut down one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But I got to ask you, what are the negatives from this game?
Yeah, unfortunately, Zander, there were a lot of negatives that you got to take away from this game.
I knew there was a catch.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. They're a much better team, and it's great that they competed with a great team, but there were a lot of if they cut down on a lot of mistakes, they could have had a better chance to win the game, and especially on offense. Mm-hmm. So Ross Thomas went 15 for 26. He threw 223 yards. He had a touchdown. He had an interception, but unfortunately, he had a QBR of 5.6. And UMass, even though I would say the defense was the star for UMass with the turnover, with the interceptions, they definitely were not perfect. They had a hard time stopping the run. Nick Fitzgerald, the quarterback, ran for 135 yards. He had 2 touchdowns for rushing touchdowns, and Eris Williams ran for 114 yards. And on first downs, Mississippi State had 21 first downs, and UMass had 12. And UMass was 3 of 13 on third down. And as far as yards, Mississippi State had 393, UMass had 350, and Mississippi State dominated time of possession as Mississippi State had the ball for 31 minutes and 25 seconds, and UMass had it for 28 minutes and 35 seconds. And also Mississippi State's Derek Thomas ran 83 yards for a touchdown with 5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and had a total of 104 yards on a 4-yard punt return. So special teams, I've been talking about special teams, how it's the coverage on punt returnings has been a little iffy, so that definitely cost them 7 points there. And also, the only UMass interception resulted in a pick 6, which was another 7 points. So 7 points off a pick 6, and another 7 points off the punt return. So that's 14 points. And if they could have eliminated those, they could have had a better chance at beating Mississippi State.
They were close, though. Almost pulled it off. So we were talking about it before we went on tonight, but there was a fight in this game between 2 UMass players. What happened? You didn't really give me too much to go on about that.
So what happened was, in the fourth quarter, there was a play in which Ross Thomas ran for a first down, and his helmet collided with linebacker for Mississippi State, Leo Lewis. And then Thomas got knocked out. I believe this was the second time he got knocked in the head. However, Mississippi State linebacker Gary Green also got hurt during the play, as UMass offensive lineman Ray Thomas Ishman landed on him. I believe landed on his leg and tried to recover the ball. And then during the injury timeout, in which they were checking out Ross Thomas, who was laying on the ground, Ray Thomas Ishman and running back / wide receiver Jesse Britt got into a verbal altercation, which was initiated by Ray Thomas Ishman as he pushed Jesse Britt. And there was a lot of pushing and shoving, and they had to be separated by the assistant coaches. And at the same time, Coach Whipple appeared to approach Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen to say a few words to him. And so they had to get separated by the refs. And I believe that Mullen came to check out on Thomas, and I think Whipple I'm going to guess he felt that they were throwing some cheap shots at his quarterback, and obviously he wants to take care of his quarterback because Andrew Ford has gotten hurt, and we don't need any more quarterbacks on the injured reserve. And
you got to protect your players.
Yeah. And also, both coaches have a history, as they've gone back to 1996 when Whipple was a coach at Brown and Mullen was a wide receiver coach at Columbia.
You know that rivalry, Brown and Columbia, that Ivy League rivalry. Anyway, let's talk about something happier. This weekend, UMass is playing the University of Maine in the Fenway Gridiron Series at Fenway. What can we expect from this game?
Oh boy, I'm excited for this one. It's Fenway Park, the home of the Boston Red Sox.
You get to walk around the field. I don't like you very much, but I gotta respect you right now.
Yeah. Well, besides that, let's talk about the game. So Maine is 4-4. They are 4th in the Colonial Atlantic, and I don't think this is a great team. They don't have the most impressive resume, even though they are 4-4, which would tell you that they're an okay team, like middle of the pack team. They've lost to teams like Delaware and Villanova. They've beaten teams like Rhode Island and William and Mary. And so far this year, they have beaten teams that are 11-25. And UMass has played, I believe UMass has played a much tougher schedule. Even though their record's worse, they've played a much tougher schedule, and they've beaten a team like Appalachian State, which I didn't think they would win. and they competed with a team like Mississippi State. So I believe that UMass is a better team, and UMass, since this is in Fenway, I would consider this a UMass home game, and Maine is 3-1, 1-3 on the road.
So, I mean, they're an FCS team, but what's your prediction for the next game?
So I predict, unlike the last 2 weeks, I'm going to predict a UMass victory. So I'm going to say...
This guy, what? A win?
Yes.
A win. What's the score?
I'm going to say UMass 38, Maine 24.
All right. You heard it here first, folks. UMass has beaten Maine 38-24. Side note, Cheho, what do you make of the uniforms? What do you make of those military appreciation uniforms?
I like it.
I agree with you on that one.
You got to respect the military.
Salute to the military.
Salute you.
Anyways, thanks for taking the time to talk to us, Cheho. We'll be right back with Ryan Beaton. We'll be discussing some UMass hockey. Don't change the channel. We'll be right back. And just like that, we're back. On Saturday night, the UMass hockey team played their third Hockey East game of the season versus UNH. How'd they do, you might ask? They were shut out 3-0. Really unfortunate to see that happen to a team with so much potential. Well, on that note, we bring in our resident hockey expert, Ryan Beaton. Ryan, how are we doing tonight?
Great. How are you, Zander?
Can't complain. I'm here on a Tuesday night with some nice people. So UMass played a very impressive hockey team in UNH on Saturday. What are your initial thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, University of New Hampshire hockey played exactly how you expect them to play. Ranked 9th in the NCAA Division I. This wasn't supposed to be an easy game for the Minutemen. Carvel was quoted saying that he wished his team came out with a little bit more energy. Overall, he said it was a frustrating loss, as it should be too. UNH really took advantage of offensive opportunities, which is their specialty. And, you know, obviously UMass lost 3-0. Their first goal came off a pretty sketchy situation. UNH scored from behind their own blue line, which is obviously never a good thing. And I think mentally it probably set the Minutemen back a little bit because right off the bat they're trying to crawl out of the hole. Obviously, not the mentality you want to have starting a hockey game, a competition so fierce, and really something that you just can't afford. And it was Matt Murray, by the way, that let the goal in. He also let in one more that period around the 15-minute mark. That put the Minutemen down 2-0 going into the first intermission. Oddly enough, Murray actually didn't come out to start the second period. It was actually Ryan Wischow that took over for the rest of the game.
Really? That's an interesting coaching decision, but I mean, Carvel does Carvel, I guess. Switch the goalies after one period of play. What do you think went into that decision?
I don't think you can completely rule out the fluke goal that sort of got by Murray. Obviously, mistakes are going to happen. You're going to see strange goals like that every now and then. I think the fact that they were down 2-0 already had more of an impact, more of a factor in the decision to switch up goalies. Sometimes you just need to work something else out that might have not worked previously, especially if you're not having a whole lot of early success. Wischow did a nice job only letting up one goal. It was kind of a tricky one to save too, as it came in one-time fashion.
It's always tough.
He totaled 15 saves on the night. Although that number, it kind of surprised me because in person it felt like he was making a lot more saves, and I think that was actually deceiving because the saves he made just came in such spectacular fashion. When he came out to start the second, he was goaltending the net, the closest to the UMass fans, the militia. And let me tell you, it was like a lot of people were excited to see him back in net. He started a lot of games last year. The fans never really forgot about him. And they really got going when he made a big stop. I think he played a bigger role than people will give him credit for. So
Maybe he should have started the game. I mean, who knows? But I mean, last question here. What's next for the Minutemen? They have a home-and-home series against Providence, but
yeah.
what can we expect out of that series?
Yeah, I mean, first game at home here at the Mullins on Thursday. They're then going to travel out to the PC campus on Saturday. Providence is 2-2 in conference play. UMass is 1-2. Still pretty early to tell where the teams fall, how they'll stack up against each other. But what I can tell you is that Providence is currently ranked 8th in the nation, NCAA Division I. That's even better than UNH. So if you ask me, they're in for another really competitive game. So
Kind of a homecoming for Nico Rufo, too, going back to Providence for the first time.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thanks for taking the time to talk to us, Ryan. Up next, we have J-Mac, or Justin McCagnon, whatever you want to call him, and he'll be giving us the latest on UMass men's soccer. Don't change the channel. We won't be gone for too long. We'll be right back. And we are back. Over the weekend, the UMass men's soccer team was all over the place, falling to Fordham in the regular season finale 3-2, but still winning the regular season A-10 title. Then they made it to the semifinals of the A-10 tournament. Great to see a team doing so well. And with that, we bring in our men's soccer expert, Mr. Justin McCagnon, or J-Mac. Justin, J-Mac, whatever you want to be called. How are you doing tonight?
Couldn't be better here, Zander.
So, how did UMass look against Fordham last week? Since they're in the tournament play now, and will play Fordham this coming Friday.
UMass looked very good on Friday, actually. They fought a tough game against Fordham, pulling back from a 2-1 deficit in the second half to tie it 2-2.
All right.
However, the Minutemen lost on a late goal by Fordham and lost the game 3-2. It's an unfortunate loss for the Minutemen, but it didn't kill their morale for tournament play, obviously, as we later saw in the week that they beat St. Louis 1-0 on Sunday with a highly dominant game from the defense. We expected them to make a run in this tournament, and boy, are we pleasantly surprised.
I mean, they switched the roles. The 1-0 game came in the tournament, not against Fordham.
Obviously, yeah.
But speaking of that, UMass has moved on to the A-10 tournament, expecting another matchup against a team that, from 1 week before that, they beat them. How do you win this game?
Well, I expect UMass to come out guns a-blazing in this game. I personally feel that they are angry about the last loss they were given, since it was the final game of the season and their final home game for the season. It's an unfortunate loss, and with that, I personally believe the spark has been lit, and with that, UMass will finally get over the hump and beat Fordham to move on in this highly competitive Atlantic 10 tournament. As long as the defense holds up, UMass will be victorious in Friday's effort.
Now I gotta ask you, was that spark pun intentional? The Minutemen sparks?
Yeah.
Guns blazing?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Absolutely.
What do you think the key factor is to Friday's game?
The key factor for Friday's game is for UMass to not get down on themselves. If they lit up a goal in the first half, for instance, they can't let it get to them, because that type of mentality will ultimately defeat them and end their season. This is solely because they have had countless games of major comebacks, and the major factor in all of those comebacks was not the defense and it wasn't the offense, it was actually the mental state of the team. They felt they could do it and inevitably achieve the goal. Hence, if they have that same mentality, UMass will be moving on in tournament play.
Sounds like they've got their work definitely cut out for them.
Absolutely.
But what's your prediction for Friday's game? What's the score? We want to know. Everybody wants to know.
Personally, I think 3-1, UMass pulls this out. As I said before, I think UMass is angry about that close loss last week and will take down Fordham to avoid being swept by them for the season.
Well, anyway, thanks for taking the time to talk to us, J-Mac. Sounds like you got your hands full this weekend.
Oh, absolutely.
And that'll just about do it for us here at UMass Sports Weekly. Thanks for joining us this week. Next week, we will be back at the same time, in the same place next week. Big thank you to Amanda, our producer in the next room, and Daryl, our faculty supervisor, who keeps this show running after all this time. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter, Periscope, Snapchat, Facebook. Tumblr? I think we have, I don't know. You name it, we probably have it when it comes to social media. But anyways, follow us on the other ones that we know for sure, which are Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Periscope. Anyways, it's that time again. Call up Greenfields, because that's a wrap. Have a great week, UMass.